is Mental Health Awareness Month, and 11 Alive is working to raise awareness about trauma and the impact it can have on the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of individuals, families, and communities. So studies show 30% of adults are dealing with anxiety and depression. And over the last several decades, advocates have been working to end that stigma surrounding getting help, including therapy and medication. So this month, we are learning more about why it's important for people to have as many resources as possible.
Mental Health Awareness Month was established back in 1949 to shed a light on mental health and wellness and recovery from mental illness. The mission throughout the month of May is to discuss an issue that many deal with and few talk about. During Mental Health Awareness Month, the work to break that stigma is at the forefront. That includes starting conversations and letting people know they're not alone. But getting that help doesn't always come easily. Stigma still plays a big role in preventing many people from reaching out, especially men. Studies show women are far more likely to seek help, but any gender can feel a wide range of reactions. So there's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to treating mental illness, but it's about taking that first step to find what works.
In Georgia, suicide attempts are up among young girls and teenagers, particularly Black youth. So according to the CDC, emergency room visits for suspected suicide attempts were 50% higher among girls aged 12 to 17 during the pandemic compared to before it. For comparison, ER visits among boys in that same age group for possible suicide attempts increased by just 4%. 11 Alive's Jennifer Bellamy explores some of the signs that parents can look for and how to begin that very difficult conversation if your teen is in distress.
I would say the biggest symptom would be isolation. I know sometimes as a teen and as a young adult, we want to isolate, right? And especially now we're on our phones.
It's a sign mental health experts point to the most. If you see your child start to pull away, it's time to talk.
Some warning signs, changes in their behavior. If you've got a kid who's, into a lot of activities, spend lots of time with friends, and then you begin seeing them starting to isolate, stay in their room more, that's a sign to just check that out.
Paige Gaines started 911 St. Jane as a place for young girls to get help. She understands. She tried to die by suicide for the first time at 12 years old.
And coming from that space and being a Black woman, my parents and myself, we were just looking like, well, who do we even turn to have this conversation? How do we get help?
She says parents need to know children express anxiety and depression differently.
I simply would say, hey, I don't feel good, right? My stomach is hurting, my headache, I have a headache right now. I really do not want to go to school. My chest hurts.
According to the Georgia Department of Public Health, suicide rates are down across most demographics, except in the Black community.
Suicide is now the third leading cause of death among African Americans aged 10 to 24. This is the first time ever in history that suicide rates in the African American community among any age segment have superseded that of the white population.
Studies show Black Americans are less likely to seek and receive mental health care.
I grew up in a home where, it was what happens in our family stays in our family. We don't tell other people about problems that we have. And historically, I think that has been a great barrier for African Americans in seeking help.
While some issues are starting in school, the solutions to this crisis aren't making it home.
So a lot of schools are implementing the education and the conversation within their school system, but the disconnect comes when we're not bringing it home. So the parents aren't aware, the parents aren't receiving that education.
Georgia has a new 988 crisis line that the Department of Public Health says is working. 10% of calls in the first month came from kids under 18.
And research shows 93% of parents knows it's important to have these conversations, but more than half of them need help getting it started. So we want to help you out with 3 tips. The first one is to set the stage. This includes choosing a time to talk when there are less distractions to help your children focus on the conversation. It also means sharing things about your day, your thoughts, and your feelings. Children learn by watching us. Next, you want to ask open-ended questions. Talk to your kids about all kinds of topics, not just emotions and behaviors. This is going to help create the habit of them feeling comfortable to open up with you. And the last thing that's helpful is to get that conversation started is to be mindful of the timing. Ask your child if they are ready to talk. And if they aren't, then ask when would be a good time. This is going to help make sure everyone is calm and emotions aren't high. And as millions of people in the U.S. struggle with depression, studies show Black Americans are overrepresented in that number. 11 Alive's Dawn White explains what a local woman is doing to help others who are struggling.
Becoming a therapist is personal for Mariba Lewis.
Clearly, I've been Black all my life. And so I can honestly say that growing up, I'm from Florida, I can't think of anyone who had a therapist.
Her interest in mental health started traveling the world in the military and realizing the one thing everyone wants is to be happy.
Since COVID, of course, now it's sometimes even sexy now, some people say I have a therapist, but there still is a huge stigma related to that.
Statistics show 18% of white Americans seek help for mental health, while less than 10% of Black Americans do.
Other cultures have seen their parents, their grandparents go to therapy, and it's not taboo. You know, in the Black community, if you had a therapist 20 years ago, they would have called you crazy.
CDC statistics show suicide is the third leading cause of death for Black men ages 15 to 24. Lewis believes representation of therapists and psychiatrists in the Black community is crucial.
We want to reach out to someone who looks like us. And so therefore, if someone in the Black community starts to seek therapy and they can't find anyone that looks like them, then they may stop the process and they may never start it back up again.
Lewis encourages others in the Black community to consider a career in the mental health field.
Mentorship, and by that, reach out. You know, if you're thinking about being a therapist, reach out. We as therapists also, we have to do something as well to let other brown and Black people know that, hey, this is actually a real thing.
And as the temperature warms up, many people might be thinking about spring cleaning. So not only can a little tidying up make our environment look better, it can also benefit our mental health. Psychologists say spring and summer sunshine tends to give us a boost of energy, making it a great time to tackle some cleaning or other projects that we have put off in the winter. So checking off items on our to-do list can also provide a sense of accomplishment. So to get started, doctors recommend writing down some tasks and coming up with a reasonable timeline to complete them. This is important. Don't try to tackle them all at once. You should work at a comfortable pace and don't be afraid to ask someone else for help if you need it. Experts also say sometimes clutter can be distracting and cleaning that space could help you refocus on other goals. And research finds houseplants may also be able to help you live a happier and healthier life. Over the years, multiple studies have looked at the benefits of houseplants. Doctors say bringing a little bit of nature inside may just give a boost to your mental health.
Not just seeing plants that can help reduce stress and improve focus. Research has really shown that actually touching and smelling plants can affect our mood in a positive way.
Yeah, Dr. Flanagan says lower stress hormones can then lead to lower blood pressure. So those plants can have a positive impact on your physical health too. In the last decade, many plants have been pegged as efficient air cleaners. These include palms, ficuses, and peace lilies. From TV fame to VH1's Love and Hip Hop to gaining millions of followers on social media, Atlanta's very own reality star Alexis Sky is now opening up about her own mental health journey while being in the spotlight. She says behind her fame came depression, and now she's ready to share. She sat down with our Naima Abdullahi.
You know, someone may see you in the spotlight,
Yeah.
but they may not know your journey. They may see you in the limelight, the glitz and the glam, and have a perception of you. For those who may not really know you, what would you tell them? Who is Alexis Sky?
So that is true, because people think that because you have this nice car, this
Right.
nice bag, or these nice shoes.
Yeah.
For me, I'm human. I'm just like you. The way, you know, society paints these pictures.
Right.
It's like sometimes you can have all these things and you really can be empty and not happy. But I think I've had everything that I pretty much wanted out of life. I've gotten it, but I just was so empty in the inside, and I wasn't happy, and things just wasn't working for me or aligning for me. I just started praying. Like, I've always been a believer in God, and I'm gonna just say this, like, I've never just put it out there, but I just feel like once I had that connection with him, I felt like I wanted to just share it with the world.
For women out there who grew up in the social media era, where everything on social media feels real for them, what advice do you have for them?
Be who you are at the end of the day, and I know there's people that look up to me, but I guess what is the saying? Everything that's glitter isn't gold. Like, don't think that just because it looks like I have it together, I have it together, because I have my days and I might be going through something that you're exactly going through.
So if you could go back in time and tell 2022 Alexis anything in those darkest moments, what would you tell her?
Ooh. Keep going. Keep going. Because there was times where I just wanted to give up. And I kept going. So I would still say the same thing, keep going. Because we tend to, depression's real, and there's different forms of depression. So there might be days I might make mistakes.
Right.
So I want people to know the journey is not just gonna be a smooth road.
Right.
There's no such thing as a smooth road in life.
It's never linear.
Right.
And a fifth grader in Cobb County is now a published author. His name is Takari, and his book is empowering students and teachers to talk about their mental health. Our Cheryl Preheim has the story.
Impact isn't about age. What's happening inside Varner Elementary is proof.
They're so incredibly proud.
Takari Tatum is 11. His latest project will soon be part of the school library.
Hi, Takari.
His Snap It bracelets are already part of the school culture, taking on mental health openly.
Anytime you feel stressed or anxious, you just snap it.
His book about them is about to be released.
Seeing it all come together was like such a surreal experience. I was really just thinking about all the stuff that happened in my life with my mental health journey and just putting those words on the paper.
Takari's best friend, his grandfather, died in the pandemic. Takari saw so many of his friends struggling too.
The book is an extension of telling people that mental health matters, and it's a serious thing that almost everybody goes through.
I just can't even put it in words how proud I am of him.
Takari wrote this book in 1 week.
Yeah, right.
Of course he did.
He was like taking dictation. It's like God was just giving him the words.
Just amazing me more every day.
Mrs. Lori Mendenhall supported every step. Now retired art teacher Robin Glover illustrated his book.
So honored and so privileged.
Principal Althea Singletar sees the reach of Takari's impact.
For students to see that you can have a great idea and you see it through and all kinds of wonderful things can happen.
I hope kids who read the book feel that they're not alone.
A message that's made a difference for his dad, too.
He just does not know how big of an impact this has made.
All right, so take a look at this. Do you recognize that name right there at the top of the book? 11 Alive's Chesley McNeil wrote the foreword. Takari actually visited 11 Alive to show Chesley his school project because he wants to be a meteorologist. He says he looks up to Chesley and asked him to write the book's foreword. If you're ever struggling or find yourself having suicidal thoughts or might know someone who is, you can call the mental health hotline by simply picking up the phone and dialing 988. Someone on the other end of the phone will listen to you and help you get the resources you need. And thank you so much for joining us for this Mental Health Month special.